Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another kind of semi-recap video of the BBC Chess Masters show that aired on Monday night a few days ago now. I think it's going really well. We got to see a new set of 6 contestants come in, so some fresh faces to analyse and look at. And I'm only going to really focus on kind of one part in this video. Just before I do that, though. Massive thank you to everybody that's subscribed to the channel so far. I think it really encourages me to do more videos. And one thing that I do not need is any more encouragement because I'll do even more videos than possible. I probably should be doing some other work instead. So thank you very much for that. And anybody that's liked the videos too really helps me get along. In this video, we're just going to analyse a few opening moves and just something that was just said on the show that just irked me a little bit, and I think it could be improved. So this was the game between not the elimination game at the end, but actually one of the kind of filter games beforehand to see who can get into the balcony of dreams. We had playing with the white pieces. We had Craig, and he was against Kel. I think in these 6 is going to be some really strong players. Actually, I think we saw a couple of the others actually are going to probably go on to win it out of this group. I should imagine a lot of people saying that Kel playing with the black pieces here is one of the favourites for it, but we did see some good chess on the other boards too. Let's have a look at the opening then. So I don't know if this is the exact move order, but we had a situation where black was playing an opening called the King's Indian, and this is an opening that I've played before. He didn't really play it in a, shall we say, a normal way though. I think he played like d6 here, maybe a little too soon, and then something like this happened. And Kel's played it a little strangely. Usually you put this bishop on this square first before bringing this knight out, and the idea is that black can get castled really quickly. But there was a comment on stream, I think we saw it about this position here after d5, knight e5, and then knight to f3. We saw this position, and Grandmaster David Howell said that white has got a massive advantage here because they're controlling the centre of the board. And I think what he was trying to do, and maybe what the producers were trying to do, was just kind of give a little bit of, shall we say, strategy to how to play the game, and controlling the centre is a really important part of that. But what they kind of didn't tell you is that black's entire opening strategy is to give white the centre of the board. There's it's almost as if they're saying that black's done this and deliberately done bad moves in order to get to this point. Black's entire opening strategy by moving pawns only one square further forward is to really get their pieces out quickly. So normally bishop g7 and castles is played here, and then later on black is going to fight for the centre with either moving this pawn to e5 or moving this pawn to c5. Not usually both, usually one or the other, and strike back. And they could have done a really nice thing on this, because what they said is at this point was that because Craig playing the white pieces here has control over the centre, they kind of alluded to his nickname, which was the Python, and therefore he wanted to restrict his opponent's movements, which kind of does link in to controlling the centre. So for example, you look at this bishop, it can't go to these 2 squares here because it would get taken by the pawns. The knights are currently on dart squares, but they've not got as many squares to go to. This knight used to be here, now it hasn't got that sensible square again. And they could have kind of said that, but then they could have also maybe said, well, Kel, I can't remember what his nickname was, but you could almost argue that he was playing a bit like let's say a cobra or a viper, where he's lulling his opponent in, encouraging his opponent to come and take the centre, and then drawing him forward. So for example, this knight on c6 brings this pawn here, which actually gives black this e5 square. And actually you can say that it gives black the e5 square, and that when the bishop comes to g7, it's going to give this bishop this massive diagonal. Black usually exerts a lot of pressure on the dart squares when they play this opening. And you could have kind of gone into a bit more of a strategical discussion there. And it's not David's fault. He obviously knows all this. It's probably how they've edited it and what they've chosen to show. I think actually though that the public would have quite liked to hear a bit more about that. And how not every opening is the same as every other opening. It's not just a case of racing to get your pieces out to get castled. So for example, normally here black would go bishop g7. Let's just suppose like here, and then castles, and you can see here that black has prioritised getting castle quickly. Bishop and knight out, get castle quickly, a couple of pawn moves, no messing. And actually this is one of the reasons why I like playing the King's Indian, because my first 5 moves are pretty much set 2 pawns, a knight, a bishop, and getting castled. You can't really make it any easier than that. Whereas white hasn't actually focused on getting castled quickly. They haven't focused on getting the king safe, but also getting their bishops out. They've got a couple of knights out, but actually they've focused on moving a lot of pawns and controlling the centre. So that the balance between the two openings is almost completely different. You've got complete opposites here. I mean, to be honest, if we'd have said maybe let's do the 4 pawns attack or even the same-ish, you can say white has moved loads of pawns, which is obviously unusual. Some people would say that was a bad idea. Because you will need to develop your pieces, but actually these are just variations. And I think it would have been quite nice to see that and see that discussed and maybe shown to the general public on TV. But instead they chose to go with just this kind of like, kind of deliberate kind of not really just controlling the centre, and that was it. And actually they said that after knight takes knight, queen takes, and the queen would be out doing something. Well, I think this maybe even happened in the game. And it's like, well, the queen on this square, I mean, yeah, okay, it's developed, so to speak, but it doesn't actually do anything. In fact, it's actually a bit of a target for this bishop coming to g4. It can attack it for free. So I wouldn't even say the queen was well placed there. What's it actually attacking? It actually has no function. The only possible thing it could potentially do is maybe it's kind of ready to kind of help these pawns launch an attack, but that was there anyway. So actually this queen on this square wasn't actually that good. I mean, the knight could even reroute, and when it comes to this square, it would attack the queen as well. So actually, this is quite bad, and they could have shown maybe this variation with bishop g4. I thought this might have been a nice move here for black to play, pinning the knight to the queen and having 2 attackers on it. And then they could have maybe even said, well, what black is threatening to do next? Let's suppose that white just does a nothing move. Black can now take. Maybe we take with the bishop here, actually. And then white can't take back with the queen because they lose the queen to the knight, so therefore they have to take back with the pawn. You could have introduced the concept of double pawns as well. So, talking about how these are kind of weak and kind of not ideal, and they can be attacked, and now white's pawns aren't as flexible. They do gain an open file in exchange for that. So it's not all bad news. However, generally speaking, double pawns are usually something you want to avoid. And this could have been an interesting kind of discussion, and you could have gone a little bit further, talking about these kind of ideas. I quite like the fact that you can have different openings, and you kind of like say, well, on a score out of 10, for example, how well do they occupy the centre? How well do they get your pieces out? How well do they get quickly do they get your king castled? And so, for example, if we let's say we go back and just talk about, say, something like, for example, the Karo Khan, and one of the main lines of the Karo Khan, I'm pretty sure it goes something like this, right? And this is the advanced Karo Khan, and we've advanced past black's main pawn move, and you get this light square bishop out. And we're taught, as in an opening theory, is to not move a piece more than twice in the opening if we can help it, because we want to try and race to get our other pieces out. And yet here we get to a situation very quickly. Let's just see what would be the main move here. Let's go h4, and then let's go h6, and then let's go g4. And then we see here that this bishop's going to move again. I think actually retreating back to this way is probably the best, but I guess it could come here, and then we could go f3, could come back to here, and then we go h5. And you have an opening like this, which is completely different to what new players should be trying to do. This bishop has moved once, twice, 3 times, 4 times to get out here. White has only developed pawns. It just shows you that chess can be played in many different ways, and the different openings that we choose to go with and different variations within those kind of have them all they're all the bases covered, so, the different styles of play. I mean, of course, white could have chosen a different variation here. For example, they could have just gone knight f3 and just bishop e2 and just prioritise getting castled. And some people prefer to do lots of pawn moves, some people prefer to do lots of developing, getting their king castled before they start to embrace the attack and the fight of the game. And I think that would have been a nice, interesting discussion for it. Okay, that's just my first thoughts. I might have a look at the elimination game again and do another video on that, but for now, I think we'll call it a day on that. Let me know in the comments if you agree, or if you think these new set of 6 contestants, if we think the winner might be out of this 6 rather than the first 6, and how you're finding the show. I think those ratings actually have been they've dropped off obviously from the first opening weekend, but I don't think they've dropped off significantly, so I really would like to hope that they do a series 2. And in other news, if you were on the British Chess News Facebook group, I hope you enjoyed my April Fool's prank that I put on there. But yeah, thanks very much for watching, and speak to you again soon.